This is a UUMC Syracuse production. Conversations with Pastor Alicia.
We are here again with our podcast. I'm Pastor Alicia Wood at United Meth Church in Syracuse, and I am here with Jason Naradzi, and we met maybe in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
in June of 2016, and Jason's been around the church here and there for the last however many years that is. And he and I were connecting for a whole nother reason. And he said, "I'd love to tell you my story." And I said, "I have a podcast. Will you tell it to me on my podcast?"
Yeah.
So tell us your story, Jason.
Okay. First off, I very much appreciate this opportunity to tell my story. And hopefully there's somebody out there that will be encouraged, maybe get a tickle from the Spirit to really deepen their connection into the life and death of our personal Savior, Jesus Christ. And that is the crux of my story, and I have full respect for the whole story, Genesis all the way through to Revelation. Mm-hmm. It's all important, all relevant. But for me and what I do and my experience, if I could stick to his 38 parables, it will take me 50 generations to begin to understand.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I've learned to not minor in the major things and not major in the minor things. But
love it.
Yeah. Right. So, let me take it back. I was born in 1965 to John and Virginia Mary Naradzi in Yonkers, New York. My dad was a World War II Power Marine and settled in Westchester County. At the time was farmland in the 50s and 60s, and now is like the fifth borough, but that's a different story. Yeah,
it is.
But when we were coming up, it was different, and it was just beginning to kind of build large, expansive developments. And my mom was a Coast Guard nurse, and in World War II, and they kind of met like that. And he took her out of Newark, New Jersey, where her family was from, and Sicilian. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. And my dad was Polish American.
Oh, this is going to get interesting.
It can be, yeah. It's an interesting background, like all humans have, right?
Of course,
that's what the human condition is about, right?
So correct.
And but God can intervene, and you'll hear that in a minute. So, kind of a rich religious background. My dad was Russian Orthodox and devout, and my mom was Roman Catholic. And Father Francis Xavier converted my dad after my third oldest brother was born. I'm the youngest of 7.
Wow.
Yeah, all begin with J's. Second names are alphabetical. Yep. And my dad was an engineer. And he had a deep faith, and Father Francis Xavier converted him poolside. I heard over some scotch. And he joined Roman Catholicism to be with my mom and got baptized, and then changed kind of the trajectory or the tradition there. 2 of my older brothers actually went to seminary as a result of that, and we all went through St. Bartholomew's, which was kind of at the corner of our house, kind of first generation, second generation, kind of New York immigrant story at that point. And so we had a deep kind of basic foundation in at least Roman Catholicism. Certainly a lot of Jesus in there, kind of in the Jesuit tradition.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Big on education and discipline. And that played a role later on. And off that foundation, I'll get to that in a minute, hopefully, once I get out of Yonkers here. And in 1973, when I was 7.5, my mom passed away of breast cancer.
Oh.
Yeah, tragic. And still wrestling with that to this day.
Of course.
I have a YouTube channel, Jason Naradzi, and there's a song there, Under the Ice. And it was played at Carnegie Hall, actually. Composition that I wrote for a string quartet, and it's about this conversation with my mom, much like the life that exists underneath like a frozen lake.
Right.
So I think there's something spiritual going on there. Often I feel protected, but so that in a lot of ways kind of made me different, put me on a different path from others. And moved us actually out of Yonkers into northwest corner of Connecticut on a place called Candlewood Lake near Litchfield, Connecticut. And kind of the heart of like Presbyterianism and the abolitionist movement was in a town just north of us, Torrington, John Brown's place, and a real fervor and a real zeal kind of in the founding father kind of puritanical tradition there, which was very different than the kind of immigrant stories that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a new thread in my spiritual experience, and interesting, and I loved it. And but at the same time, I think a lot of those issues with my mom's early dying set me on a kind of a course of escapism in high school when things got a little more dynamic, and certainly into college, and turned into kind of a ferocious alcoholic in my 20s, and fashioned myself to be kind of a Frank Sinatra, and the world was an oyster, and it was the roaring 80s, and
Wow.
I looked at kind of the Wolf of Wall Street, almost lust, like that would be the life that was ahead for me. It was the roaring 80s, and there was a lot of that going on.
Yep.
And I got caught up in it, and a lot of political stuff as well during the Reagan era. It was pretty heady times, and particularly where I was. I went to the University of Maryland and struggled. Eventually graduated with a degree in finance after 12 years. Yeah, that was a struggle, but I came out of it.
Yeah, congratulations.
And actually found sobriety for the first time at age 30, and began working as a credit analyst. I got my degree in finance and started working in finance, and did for like the next 12 years. And attended church and school on like a good boy kind of Sunday school fashion while I attended AA, which is a key part of my story, which helped me get sober and stay sober. But it was more about blaming my parents and almost blaming God at the same time for my mom and everything else, not teaching me this and da-da-da-da. And that didn't last. It didn't work. And after a few years, I fell off the wagon, relapsed for 2 years, and picked up right where I left off. And my life that I had built, at that point I was living in Washington, D.C. at the top of Georgetown on Cleveland Avenue, beautiful home, rented with a college buddy for a couple of years, and just all went to hell in a handbasket really quickly. In 2 years' time, I picked up where I left off, and ended up 25 years and 7 months ago in St. Albans Church at the highest point in Washington, D.C. I think it's the Episcopal headquarters for the U.S.
Okay.
And they have tons of AA meetings there. And I found myself in their main room, meeting room. And Michael D., who was was given as a speaker's meeting. And he was talking, I think he was on Reagan's cabinet, and a raging alcoholic was telling his story, falling out of planes and meetings of state. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that people in that level did that, like me. And at the same time, I look in the back of the room, and there's the classic alcoholic, right? Scrungy, kind of gray red hair, and a scrungy beard, and a trench coat. And he was sitting kind of cockeyed on his chair, and I looked at him real close, and I noticed a puddle forming at his leg. He was urinating on himself in the back of the room. And as soon as I said that, I swung back to look at the speaker to see if he was noticing like what was going on. And he says, "Everyone is welcome here from Yale to jail."
Wow.
And I said, okay, this is, in a way, I felt at home.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It was powerful, kind of an epiphany. And that led to my recovery, which I'm enjoying to today. Like I said, 25 years ago in 7 months. And, but I had deeper issues. I kind of got my life together, began to. And, there was, for me, drinking was but a symptom. And depression was a big part of my story, untreated. And, the sadness involved in a whole bunch of things. And that led to a fast forwarding now to 2004. And in Geddes, New York, I had left Washington, D.C. My brother had moved me up to Watertown, New York, and he was the medical director of Jefferson County. And part of the anthrax vaccine rollout, he was responsible for that.
Oh, wow.
And moved me up there, gave me a Jeep. And we began this vaccine rollout plan through funding by the Homeland Security, and he owned the emergency room at Samaritan Medical Center. So I moved up to Watertown and did that for a year, and they pulled the funding on the program because they stopped the vaccine rollout. And I decided to go back to Lemoyne College and get my CPA. So in September of 2003, I moved to Holy Ave, 307 Holy Ave, and began taking my classes at Lemoyne. I only had, I think, 4 or 5 left to get to then sit for the CPA exam, lining everything up. I was working as a controller for Gin Cola importers. My faith, when I left Washington, I left my support network, I left my church, my home group, and was kind of flying by the seat of my pants for over a year and isolated, no friends. And I took up with a married woman who promised me she was going to leave her husband, and that wasn't the case. And it soon, in 6 months, turned out to be much different, kind of a married but available situation with her and her friends. And I bowed out in October, and a whole bunch of things, a lot of doors that were open to me here in Syracuse, closed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, closed, and very painful time from Halloween of 2004 to February 4th of 2004. And it was a snowy winter. I think that winter we got 111 inches of snow by Christmas. It was one of those winters.
Wow.
Yeah, it was snowing like 4 inches a day every day. And I have seasonal affective disorder. So that winter was really hard on me. Really hard. And I basically had a break on Thursday night. It was a Thursday night, February 4th. And went to do harm to her and her husband, who was loosely involved, and got caught, fortunately. Got caught on my way, and got arrested with a shotgun and a note. It's all over the internet. No reason to hide it. It's part of my story. It's my scar, if you will. And in October of 2004, I was convicted of attempted murder, attempt burglary, and criminal possession of a weapon in the 4th degree. And went to state prison for 15 years with 5 years of post-release supervision. I paid the full price, but it's there that I really want to pick up with. That was what I just said was all pretext.
Right.
I wandered from 2004 to, I would say, June, July-ish of 2007, and ended up at Eastern Correctional Facility, an honors jail in Napanoch, New York, where they made me the gardener. And during those first few years, I was neither dead nor alive. Neither dead. It was a far fall from grace, mind-numbing. Medications didn't really help. It was just, night turned into day, turned into night, turned into day for several years.
Wow.
Yeah, had a beard. Yeah, a broken man, broken spirit. My flame was barely flickering, but flickering. And when I got to Eastern, because I had a good behavior, I wasn't able to do anything much in terms of trouble or anything. That flame began to brighten. And I'd come across 2 things in the spiritually. One was the spiritual exercises by Ignatius Loyola. I began to practice that for several years, pretty devoutly. And also a lot of writings by the Flemish mystics, Meister Eckhart, and realized kind of the limitations of mysticism. I think about it now where it's kind of like you go up it was important to me because it reinvigorated me to think anew and big about how big this really, really is.
Yes.
Like looking behind the curtain. My life seemed to go from checkers to chess. Right. And, but it was all that mystical experience was, and I had one, prison can be made into a monastery, sort of, right? And it was for me. A lot of deep, devout, daily devotions for years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty powerful. It was kind of like climbing Mount Everest without a air tank,
Wow.
The higher you go, it gets a little heady and kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. and it's unwise. Like it's kind of a rookie mistake, I think, to go too far from the bedrock of our tradition.
Right.
Wander too far afield. So I kind of settled on work from that kind of coming out of kind of a existential crisis and right into these kind of deeper truths and parts of our faith. It was very rich and often felt warm, and I was held in God's hand at times, and ended up, like I said, at Eastern, and a man named Joe Bergamini was giving out tracts in the yard, a Protestant guy from the chapel there under a favorite reverend of mine, and Reverend Williams, I think he was a Church of God in Christ, but he was the prison minister at the Protestant chapel. And the guys would often go around the yard and look for people like me, broken, and give them tracts and talk to them, offer them coffee, some toiletries. And he did that and pulled me into the Protestant chapel. And in the next year, I got my hygiene together and started really walking in the light more fully, at least in communion with others. I did this deep inward journey and then began to started to come out. And I knew I was really onto something then. And I had a born-again experience on my birthday, July 27th, 2007.
Wow.
Yeah. Went into the tank, white robe, the whole works. And I sent home a picture of that. They take a picture right when you come out.
Yeah.
And my brother Jack, who's kind of known me my whole life, second oldest brother, he said that's the first time he ever saw me smile.
Wow.
Yeah. And he still tells that. He still says it. Yeah. Yeah, because I always had this kind of smirk, not a real smile, kind of like that, Not a smile. Yeah. And I felt changed in that time, like at a cellular level. And I talked different. I had different ideas. And I still thought I had to work things out. There was still some vestiges, old habits. And I went through another 1 year, 18-month period of this kind of breaking bondages. Right. And I examined the times I used Ouija boards and kind of family curses. And I did this kind of deep work and through deep prayer, meditation, and fasting. And honestly, to this day, I believe that there was a great deal of liberation.
Wow.
Yeah. I was free on the inside. And in that process, it became, someone told me that it gets better, man. Just hang on, put on your seatbelt.
All right.
Yeah. So, in the springish of 2008, Joe and a man named George Chochos, who was the clerk at the chapel, they, told me about a program at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, the New York Theological Seminary. Offers a master's degree, the only one in the country, in pastoral care and counseling. Wow. And it's a 2-year degree on the street at Riverside Drive in Manhattan, in the Norman Vincent Peale building. Yep. And they condensed it into one because obviously we had time and focus on our side, right? In the monastery there. So I applied and got in. So they did an education transfer. A van takes me in July of 2008, and I do the program. Right. And it was the social gospel, really focused on the parable of the sower. Right. And a lot of deep understanding of that, and kind of coming from the more mystical background and the kind of medieval Catholic tradition. I had this real deep understanding of the loving kindness of God. I had felt it. It moved me. It changed me. I saw it changing other people. So that kind of truth stuck with me, and then I was kind of equipped in the seminary.
Wow.
Like they gave me tools and language and all sorts of, many classes on ministry and technique and modalities and approaches to pastoral care and counseling. And it was really an equipping to work in a vineyard. That's, and that was the call.
Yep.
We need workers.
Yeah.
Right. So when that concluded in the spring of 2009, I went on a 40-day, this is curious, you might find interesting, right? I went on a 40-day fast right before I graduated. I think our graduation was the 12th or the 16th. I still got the invitations at home. Very nice ones, actually. And 40 days before that, I fasted. I would have a meal at night and drink a lot of water during the day. And I asked God prayerfully, fervently, show me what to do next. You've given me something, I'm kind of born again. Mm-hmm. I feel your spirit alive in me. Mm-hmm. What do you want me to do with all this? Yeah. Where do I go from here? Mm-hmm. Just light the next step. That's all every day, many times a day. And, I start getting choked up at this point because towards the end of it, 35th, 37th day-ish, I'm waking up, got my boxers on in my cell, 48 square foot cell, 6x8, and a regular kind of 2-foot gate with bars in front of it. Wake up, have my cup of coffee, and a little short man, 5'2", light-skinned African-American guy, dark sunglasses. He had, eye problems, cataracts or something. Comes to my gate, never saw him before, and his name was Stephen Walker. And he comes to my gate, and he says, "You Jason Aradzi." And when somebody does that you don't know, it's usually not good in prison. Your name has been pulled into something or somebody died in the family. It's just not good. So I'm a little, startled. And plus, I haven't really had my coffee yet. I was just sipping it, right? So I'm kind of and I'm in my boxers, sitting on my bed, kind of awkward. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah. And he said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." Let me throw on my shorts, kind of threw some water on my face. And then my little gerbil cage there, go to the gate. And I said, "Yeah, what can I do for you?" And he introduces himself and he said, "Listen, I run the alcohol and substance abuse treatment program here. And I've run it for 30-something years at that time. I worked with them for 6 years. I think it was 31 or 32 years at that time. And down in Japan, one of the lower buildings, I'd like you to come and be my clerk. I heard your name mentioned and talked about in the counselor's office upstairs. Would you like to be my clerk?" And I was kind of shocked and taken back. Is this what I've been praying for? Who is this guy? Is this a joke? I'm looking down the gallery is this one of my friends sending someone over? What's going on right now? And he noticed that I was a little taken back. So he sticks his hands through the bars and asks for mine and starts to pray. Wow. Highly illegal. Everybody could get fired for that. You just can't do that in prison. Not pray, you can't touch an inmate, blah, blah, blah. He just does it. Wow. Stephen Walker just steps out and does it. Wow. Grab his hands and, Wow. So we start to pray and he asks for clarity and a right decision and, and make it known clearly to me what to do. And I said, "That's a beautiful prayer. Thank you, Mr. Walker." I said, at 1:00 in the afternoon, I have to go see my counselor that day and tell her or get my instructions for my bus back to my home jail, Eastern, because I was on an education transfer. Mm-hmm. And I said, can I have till then? I want to pray about this, and I'm kind of nervous, and I'm not sure if I want to stay in Sing Sing. Eastern's the honors jail. Sing Sing's kind of the Wild West, kind of like the street, very different, and very loose. Mm-hmm. And so he says, fine. He said, I was hoping for an answer right now. I said, listen, I'll tell you at 1:00. He said, good. My office is right next to your counselor's office. Tell her, and she'll tell me. Thank you. Okay. So I go to breakfast, all before breakfast. I come back down from breakfast onto my gallery, and the CO in the bubble, which is in the middle of the gallery. There's 40-something cells on either side with a kind of gallery in the middle. Okay. And we call it the bubble, or they called it the bubble, where 2 or 3 COs sit, their office, which is kind of 2 cells that they took the wall out of. And he says, Naradzi. I said, yeah. He said, Reverend Sabuni, the Protestant chaplain, wants to see you. Right? So I'm like, someone died. That's the only time that happens. And I had been attending services, but loosely because of school. And I wasn't deeply rooted in that particular chapel. Mm-hmm. And I go, okay. So he's, go down there right away. Just go right now. So I go to the bathroom, whatever. I go down to see Reverend Sabuni in the Protestant chapel. And he tells me that Dr. Gloria Askew, who is the director of ministerial services for all the prisons in New York State, who taught my pastoral care and counseling class, had talked with Reverend Payne, the chaplain at Comstock Prison, would like to hire me as his clerk. And he will get me into, in short order, 2 or 3 months from general population into preferred housing. Because Comstock is a very rough jail. It's near Albany. It's notorious. So I'm blown away. Yeah. Blown away. I have no idea what's going on. It's kind of surreal. I'm backpedaling. I don't know what I want to do. Yeah. and it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'd kind of been planning on just taking the diploma and going back to Eastern and seeing what was there for me to do. But now these 2 opportunities are in my lap.
Wow.
I had to call a timeout, right?
Yeah,
and
right?
Say, listen, Reverend Simone, I got something else going on, and I got a 1 o'clock. I like the idea. It's very interesting. Let me pray about it. He says, fine. That was he is an Episcopal.
Okay.
Yep. Minister from South Africa. And so I said, fine. And he says, fine. And so at 1 o'clock, I go to lunch. 1 o'clock, I go to my counselor's office. And I'm still battling on what to do.
Of course, yeah.
Eastern, back there, see what's happening. ASAT, the substance abuse program under Mr. Walker, or Reverend Payne at Comstock. I have no idea. I'm walking there. No idea. Sit down in my counselor's office. No idea. And I just blurt out. I don't know where it came from. I want to work with Mr. Walker in the substance abuse treatment program here.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that started something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became the answer. The proof was in the pudding, right? I got consolation soon that was what I was to do after being equipped, and kind of my born-again experience. And spent the next 6 years there, making 23 cents an hour.
Oh, wow.
And I started in the general populations alcohol and substance abuse treatment program, which is mandatory for most inmates. And it's basically untreated treatment, right? It doesn't rarely works.
Wow.
And in general population. And at that time, and that was, I think I started with him in July of 2009. I graduated in June of 2009. And by September, I had been filling in for somebody in the upstairs. That was second floor Tapan, Building 10. Third floor Tapan, Building 10 was the mental health programming area. Mm-hmm. There are SMEVs, seriously mentally ill, violent individuals. 85 of them at Sing Sing. They're the worst of the worst. They get preyed upon, and they don't know how to act in public, highly and population, and rough group. Yeah. And so they offered substance abuse treatment for them. It's called a MICA program, mental illness and chemical addiction. Theirs was 9 months, and it was much more intense. We had a licensed clinical social worker in the room, Michael Aitchison, level 2. He had 37 years in the system as a social worker, and Mr. Walker, it was supervised by both. And I was the inmate program aide.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I was a facilitator. I essentially explained professional staff to the inmates, participants, inmate patients on that program. And then I explained what the inmate patients were trying to say to professional staff.
Right.
I'm the middleman.
Yeah.
Right?
You're
Simple
the interpreter.
An interpreter.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. And it quickly went wildly well.
Oh.
Started doing attendance within short order. I was doing intakes and then monthly evaluations, all illegal, right? Inmate program aides aren't allowed to do any of this. Discharge planning, all of it. Running the groups, 15 to 20 guys in the morning, 15 to 20 in the afternoon.
Wow.
Created the curriculum, delivering the substance, and every day debriefed. After every group, the 3 of us or 2 of us would discuss what just happened. And I was highly trained in one simple thing for those 6 years. Just identify what you're saying. That's all you need to do. Take your best guess at what just happened and begin to think about why or what's behind it. But just identify. Almost, I think of it sometimes like a Brittany Spaniel hunting upland birds, pheasants.
Right.
Where they point.
Yeah.
And then kind of the professional staff would descend and address the issue, right?
Right.
But my job was flush out what's really happening because I knew the languages.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like speaking in tongues, right? It's kind of dialects, right?
Right.
And, so one of that went on for 6 years. And 2 things came out of that are still resonating. That I completed that stopped there in November of 2015, and I was discharged in June of 16, which is when I came here.
Yep.
Soon after. 2 things last from that. Well, 3 things. One is I'm still in the field.
Yes.
Right. I'm still working a little corner of the vineyard.
Yes.
Right. That he gave me, I feel. Healing people with substance abuse and alcoholism and mental health. Dual diagnosis.
Yep.
Is my specialty, right? I can speak to the demoniac. He knows, right? There's a lot of that out there. Fentanyl, crocodile, you name it. Bath salts.
Wow.
Yeah, spike. It's getting worse, right?
Wow.
Yeah, by the minute. It's getting weird, right? But anyway.
So 3 things.
Name
the one thing.
That's it became a profession.
Yeah.
Yep. And the second thing was a man who hadn't talked for several years, 5, 6, or 7 years. His name was Maurice Saxton. Had a heinous crime. He was in my group as an inmate participant, and we connected and talked quite a bit. And he began to talk again.
Wow.
And became my clerk. And started to do what I did. And by the end of the run there, and is now a case manager in Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yep. And getting married and kind of living a good life.
That brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah. Mo's a good guy, good man. And the third thing was we had with another social worker, Christian brother of mine still, Rudy Santa Cruz, licensed clinical social worker, who used to sneak food into our groups. Don't tell anybody. And and it was pork in the Spanish tradition. Oh my gosh. For starving men. Holy cow. Wow.
Their love language.
Yeah. So he and I started something called MAD, right, for our population, the SMEVs up there in the MICA program. Every Friday we called it Creative Energy, but it was MAD. Music one Friday, art the next Friday, drama the next Friday.
Oh, nice.
Music, art, and drama. Music, art, and drama. And these guys took to it like ducks to a water.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, compliance came up, Medicaid, like their light increased.
Wow.
Yeah, on a regular, normal basis.
Wow.
And we did that for 3 or 4 years. And in the last 2 years, we did 2 music plays with music. And I had other inmates from general population facilitate the art module, the music project, and the drama modules.
Yeah.
And we had these 2 kind of plays. And they began to get attended by brass from the facility and from Albany, where our men would perform. And it was organic, which meant organic theater. They wrote it.
Yeah.
They designed the whole play and performed.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And, at times we had 60 or 80 people watching the performance. We had a large rec room. And that turned into, in 2019, I started a not-for-profit called the JEPTA Group at a Judges Chapter 11. Great story. I suggest reading it. About a son of a harlot who lived outside the city and became a great general.
Wow.
And helped, yeah. So,
what's
great
the name
story.
of it again?
JEPTA. JEPTHA. We have a Facebook page.
Love it.
And what we do now, once a month, we bring music therapy into that SMEVI population at Sing Sing. And we've been doing it for 3 years. We have a professional teaching artist, and we're beginning to expand into 2 new prisons with our partner, Music Cambia, who provides music instruction to general population under the auspices of Carnegie Hall.
Oh, wow.
And I fell into their program about 10 or 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. I learned the violin and composition. That's where most of my music comes from on my YouTube page. And really helped me kind of work things out. Because if you're following along, playing close at home, right, I had this born-again experience, got kind of equipped, and entered kind of ministry of healing. But I still had some personal things to work out, right?
Sure.
And the music does that.
Wow.
There's a commemoration to my mom's passing away called Under the Ice. And I even commemorated my dad in an ode to John, my father, which was actually sung by Joyce DiDonato, a 2-time Grammy Award-winning opera singer.
Wow.
Mezzo-soprano.
Wow.
Yeah, powerful song. And it concludes, I wrote the score, it concludes, and the lyrics obviously, it concludes with her saying, "Goodbye, Dad." Oh. And when she sang that on that stage 6 months or so after my dad passed away while I was in prison, 95 years old, full life.
Wow.
When she sang that, it was so ethereal. All the kind of crap in my heart just went right into the airwaves. Mm-hmm. And, very powerful.
I've heard that, something like that experience before.
Yeah,
How lovely.
It was angelic. That voice, that vibration.
Yeah.
There's some science behind all that.
Yeah.
Right? That certain megahertz things happen spiritually. I don't know.
And
But
something
all I
just
know
changed.
is I was there.
Yeah.
And, it was cathartic for sure. Yeah, deep healing. Right? So here I am. Here I sit with my work in the last 6 years. And when I renew my CASAC, my Certified Alcohol Substance Abuse Counselor license in December, I'll be awarded the master level. I'm now a 2. I just have to wait for the renewal. They don't give you a mid thing. You have to wait till the renewal.
Okay.
I've been with Crouse Hospital going on 4 years. So I've been doing this work 10 of the last 12. After leaving, that's how I found you in this process, right? I came out in June of 16 and stumbled into here around that time, July, June-ish, and loved your open door.
Yes.
And early on, you had a sermon about ministering to the imprisoned. And this I felt at home in a lot of ways, and specifically drawn to your outreach ministry.
Yes.
Right? The food pantry.
Yes.
I worked for that for a while.
Yes, you did.
And it was easy and well run, and it seemed to increase. And like, you guys are feeding some people in the Sunday morning breakfast. Like, some work is getting done here, man.
Yeah.
And so I gravitated towards that. And then that was in 16. And then in 19, I bought my home, first home.
Wow.
Yeah, in Eastwood. Beautiful 1,400 square foot home, plus the attic finished in the basement.
Wow.
Yeah,
nice.
Beautiful. And a couple of years ago, I got a boat. I'm a big fisherman. That's my self-care these days.
Yes, I
just
remember.
got back from I just got back from the western edge, I think it is, of Tampa Bay with my brother. We fished the aquatic preserve down there.
Wow.
Yeah. For 3 days with a charter, and did really well. Manatees and dolphins and osprey and all types, snook, redfish. We caught everything. We were after tarpon, but they left because a cold front came in. That's another story. So he and I do these excursions now. Once a year, we have a little bucket list. This was our 4th year.
I love it.
Yeah, next year we're going to go for muskies up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've done trout in Trout Town, USA, which is Roscoe, New York. So, yeah. Well,
I love it.
Yeah, we've been fishermen for generations. Yeah. My grandfathers and uncles, like, on the Mediterranean, that's what they do. You do it like you breathe.
Right. So the reason we reconnected recently is because we were talking about how when people get out of jail, that there's a healthy way to do it and a not so healthy way to do it.
Yeah.
And part of your healthy way was finding a faith community.
That was kind of first.
And you found University United Methodist Church. I was here. Galen Murphy Stanley was our outreach coordinator.
That was my main connect. You were important, like a voice, but the hand came from Galen.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Her hand and embrace is what welcomed me. Yeah.
Right. And our experience with you was you were very open about who you were and what your past was.
My scars are, if you want to see them, they're all over the internet. I'll tell you about them. I'll throw myself under the bus before anyone else does.
Right.
But they're part of my story, and they're kind of a trophy at this point, to be honest.
Right. So,
you know anybody with that story? Right? Where their scars become their glory?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm talking to the right person here.
Yes. So, where I'm going with this is that we, at University Church believe everyone deserves a second chance.
Yes.
And so we, not only you, Jason, but other people who've come out of jail, we invite them to volunteer
Yes,
here.
You have. I've seen it.
Do a good job, and we
it.
will give you a letter of reference so you can move forward and get a good job.
Yeah.
We feel very strongly about this. We also do have background checks. So
I think I did one. Yeah, I remember that.
You
it was
did.
a long time ago.
You did.
Yeah, that's right.
But
and some wrong information came up and you guys fixed it.
I don't know. I wasn't a part of that.
Yeah, we straightened it out. Yeah.
Good. So, but where I'm going with this is to tell people who are thinking about volunteering or whatever, that we keep each other safe by doing a background check. We have a safe sanctuaries policy here.
Well lit, right?
Absolutely.
All that.
Absolutely. We do things in pairs. But we adamantly believe everyone deserves a second chance.
Yes, you do.
And so
I feel that back then, I feel that before, and I feel it today.
I'm
for sure.
Glad. I'm so glad.
You represent that to me. Yeah.
I'm so glad. Jason, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? I am so grateful for this story.
Thanks.
I've actually never heard the full version.
Yeah. So, that's like I told you, that's kind of the medium length version. There's more, right? I hope at this point, with mostly the JEPTA group, we got some big donors that are supporting us and what we do to help the SMEBs bring music therapy and food, and kind of along the line of the banquet parable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's the foundational proof text there. That's what it's about. They're looking to do an ebook on my story and kind of put it out there as a fundraising thing for the Jephthah Group. I won't get anything from it. Last night, I attended a men's Bible study for 7 or 8 pastors through the Pastor Dan Maxwell at the First Baptist Church of Chittenango. And he now invited me to start or join, I got to get more information, prison ministry in Madison County.
Oh, wow.
To go in with somebody, a pair, right? So, and then this opportunity, there was some recent setbacks in the last month or so in my personal life. And, you know, I did what I always do, deep prayer, some fasting, right? And asking some big questions. And now I'm getting some answers.
Good.
You know, so I don't know if this is a word of encouragement or, you know, we're equipped and we're gifted and we got to be bold and take it out to wherever you are.
That's right.
Right. Being asleep in church is probably not a good idea.
Right.
Right. Wake up and try to do something. That's
That's our call. That's our purpose.
That's what we need to do. And boldness, man.
Yes.
There are miracles that can follow.
Yes.
We are the hands.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
Preach.
I let my life tell the story.
That's
I don't need a microphone. Right. Niebuhr said one of the best sermons is keeping your lawn mowed.
Ooh.
I follow that. Yeah. I'm not sure which one. One of the 2 brothers, Reinhold, and I forget the other guy. They wrote the Serenity Prayer for AA. Yeah. He said one of the best sermons is just keep your lawn mowed.
Wow. Good stuff.
Right? That's where I come from. Thanks.
Well, just, you know, there's so many things that, you know, as you told your story, connect with part of my story as well. Just as a brief side note, my husband passed away when my daughter was 8.
Oh.
And so,
wow, sorry
you know,
to hear that.
Thank you. So, you know, when you spoke about your mom dying.
It's a deep wound, man.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, there's other things that have connected, but that was, you know, just the beginning point of what you shared. So thank you. Thank you so much for your openness, your honestness, and for your big, bold faith. I love it. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
It's good to be with my people.
Yes. Blessings to you, Jason.
Thank you very much.
And I'm grateful for your time. And we will be back another time. You know, there might be more to your story we need to hear.
Sure. All right.
All right. Blessings to you.
Thank you. Bye for now.